Well, hello and welcome to Transatlantic Poetry Reading Series. My name is Edward Doegar and I'm the General Manager of the Poetry Society. And we're thrilled to be able to present two wonderful poets tonight, Fran from the UK and Solmaz Sharif from Oakland in the US. So just to quickly tell you what the format will be, we're going to have each of the poets read for 15 minutes, and then we're going to have a Q&A session, so you can send in your questions while we're live, and I will do my best to, with Ryan's help over there, to put them to the poets after they've each read for 15 minutes. Tonight's going to be a slightly themed reading, and we're going to have a look at the political dimension of poetry. And each of the poets will start their reading with a poem that they have found particularly inspiring in some way. So I hope you're looking forward to that as much as I am. The first poet that we're going to hear from is Fran, and I'll introduce them in turn. So Fran will read straight after I've introduced her. Just first off, hello, Fran. Are you there? You're still muted.
Hello. No, I'm here.
And hello, Solmaz.
Hi. Hello.
So I'll start with introducing Fran. Fran won the 2014 Ambit Poetry Prize and came third in the National Poetry Competition this last year. Her poems have recently appeared in the Poetry Review, which is a flagship publication of the Poetry Society, and in fact in this very edition you can see both Fran's poems and Solmaz's together. So there are many good reasons to buy the Poetry Review, but that is certainly one. Fran's debut collection, Flat Rock, was published by Little Episodes in 2011, and her second collection, The Mystic and the Pig Thief, one of the best titles, surely, of any collection, came out from Salt in 2014. So I'm going to hand you over now to Fran to give us a political poetry reading.
Hello. Thank you all for tuning in. Assuming anyone has. I'm going to start by reading a poem by Pedrick Fiac. It's called Fatherless Sons, and it starts with a little epigraph. Gets out of hell, ghetto rats. We who are fatherless, rootless, unfed, never to be right in the head or the bed, stem from childhood's invasion like a boy playing at privates with a man's hands. Nightmare run, that robbery which is experience, yearning after the father in man. Shed blood tears from the birth wound, die, hammering wet dreams to deeds, bleeding iron from extremities yet. Will not let the black blood pass, but only afterwards when the pure soul has lost her up in the air, eyes red with poison, like grass. And the second poem I'm going to read is from The Mystic and the Pig Thief, which has a superior cover to the Fiac, but is inferior in every other way. It's kind of, I consider it a kind of spiritual successor to the Fiac poem, and also kind of a response to it. It's called Dadus. And he has handed his kingdom on, a world of sturdy hurts where Christ is a poleaxed crock of saintliness, stooped in accentuant moonlight, dancing down the obsolescent eries of shank or turf, piping ditties to pious tribulation. He was an apostle, one among many credulous sect men, men with long beards and narrow shoulders. He was from a race of stark gonks, gurning furies, fucking a gulf for the Lord, for the light of the Lord, waiting for the lobotomizing light of the Lord to ethnically cleanse them. Pogrom purists. I have hated their dread handiwork long time. Understand, he was a disciple, lethal groupie, groomed in his own cold sweat, nights spent drenched in obedient blotto, the wine, the blood, the impeccable mercies of glowering priests. Oh, how he clamoured for the crude largesse of Mother Church, his pink-white mixy eyes fried in light like rotten scallops. An old soap greasing his guesswork with whiskey and pills, kneading his guilt to a lump sum like a payday loan. A sorry wad of misaffection. He has passed this on. Faith and other luminary rackets, God as an eavesdropping slob who does not love us. Heirs to this, come clutching our Christian bygones loud in the cry-wolf chorus of our complaint, full of faint praise and hashtag emptiness, an avatar bonanza of national pride. Or we become loafing miners, alibi scallies hallooing the night, peekaboo pilgrims with indigo zips and ape-faced argument for Tory Borstal bigging it up in the swank of our inbred beefing, drab children, grudging psychos, a demobbed affront to the future, exhausting our outbursts again. And he has handed on his kingdom, a raw quandary of body parts, history in place of prayer, us, his pop-eyed progeny, bad to the bone in the deep-fried, faulty heat of summer, the north, in a nut-job ecstasy of crowd control, poxy with toppers. And the stars are pale as grease spots, the cars burn, our anger dissolves into shoddy barking. We cling together, sing up for his commie hombres, mummified amigos dispensing their old firebrand benizons. We sing with a scurvy fuzz on our tongues, sing a treasury of horrors. It is our function. Skin to him, to our nightcap nerves, it never ends. Pour it into proper nouns, acronyms, spirited giggle-like drivel, a terrible poem that pushes its laugh. Hand it on, this way, for you, Dadus. Thank you. That doesn't get much more cheerful than that. I'm afraid we've reached peak cheerfulness. We have found our level. I'm going to read Lighten the Mood ever so slightly by reading a poem inspired by John Webster's notorious laugh riot, The Duchess of Malfi. It's kind of a sort of feminist poem, as a lot of mine are, and it's called Dazzler, and it starts with a quote from The Duchess of Malfi. Like diamonds we're clutched by our own gifts. No, not a duchess, whose nature is a dance of iridescence, but a pallid aspie with a smoker's cough. I sit in the kitchen for hours at a time, compete with the fruit in the fruit bowl at withering, or lean into my mirror, unable to decide between ravaged or effaced. My lips are so red and so sharp they could kiss the skin of a cold peach, but pause pout, ladies frown. I pixelate myself with pearl dust, coats my skin to a flat gleam. Nighttime is a parabolic lozenge. I am stately. I am waiting for all the tricks you'll try to send me mad. Where is my child? I held him as he slept, pink and twitching, time-lapse like footage of a flower, a moment only. To fill the days I learn the words to Lily Marlene and sing it out of the side of my mouth. I refuse to eat in my Karen Millen maxi dress enfolds me like a fumigation tent. Where is my son and where is his father? In the bathroom my scalloped nudity takes an age to upload. I am tired. I must move slowly, stand with my heels together, corrode and fold into soup blue shadow. My legs don't work, won't run. Prognosis, mermaid. Turn the radio on. Heel and toe and howling, but no, I am nobody's loony, not yet. Open the window, let London's smoky starfield strain its light through my upturned face, breathe out my benzos and Bensons. I am nodding the sky inside of me. I will make my world in the air my world, not this dingy Margaritaville of bland godliness, My world is dance not lived, head thrown back and vaulting a roar. My world is where my fingers married up and down his tattooed back, false nails walking a roseate rain. Not a duchess, but a scheme of gowns and tapers. A lady is something planned like a heist, a conspiracy whispered up by brothers. I must parcel my hands. Demure at fist and flute, I have gone inside. I tell myself I am still myself, that I will kick more than I scream, and rather my scissors pretend to some indiscriminate vein than this. But I wasn't born for sweeping gestures. I shall buff my face to a solid shine and cut the hands I pass through. So the next poem should really begin with an apology to Hubert Selby Jr. and also to anyone who lives in Luton. We feel sorry for anyone who lives in Luton anyway. But this poem is called Last Exit to Luton. He's a real man, you can tell. Old plushy skunk and a dog he'd do well to avoid. Aaron's 23, says he could wear my moony face as pendant, calls me Tweety Bag. I hang around his neck and Aaron dries. He's taking me out to get buzzed at a club. I'm wearing white denim, spotless as a chorister, and we are sculling the druggy gale between the tire shop and the roundabout. We're leaving these scutty streets with their pawned gold and thawed meat far behind us. We're away up the town, gone for the gavelled abandon of smashed out neck, to fighting squib with binge and living for the weekend. Aaron is not like the boys at home. Dimbled, chinless wonders who only want to trap you in the maundering bondage of marriage like their mothers. Aaron's got other ideas, got big ideas and vodka and jellies, and he understands. I'm mature, need more than pliant riding in a narrow bed that howls like a chimney. He says, you're better than them, and he's right. I refuse to end up like that, like the girls at the camp, lank slags currying love and desperate quaking from spousal apathy. To be one of life's pale remainders, scrubbing my sink and trudging to church, burnt out on a soused downer again. I don't want to be tied to the sight, to the tribe, to the old men, their tournaments and sorceries, fist in the face. I am special, I am rare. I want guilt and spree and perfect terror and endless fucking diamonds. He will take me away, I know it. In the club we are spinning until my vision breaks into dizzy splinters. His kisses determine directionality. I'm lipping limoncello, lisping citronella, reeling round my handbag like a wasp around a bin. I see myself in the mirrored ceiling, well impressed with the brittle shimmy of me. Aaron is grinning and I am watching the weaponized swag of my nails rinsed in warm red light and raving in front of my face, my own face big as a billboard. All is love and there is God shining like a migraine. He will take me away, he says, but not today. Tonight it is back to his flat by flickering inches, and then to bed, this mad cabbagey firmament where I am rummaged and squirreled by turns. Aaron is smoking. The smoke hangs in the air like a spook house special effect. His back is baroque with spots of constellated mire. He does not tell me that he loves me. He tells me I am old for my age, and I smile. But if Jesus tattoo, pink and coy as a bearded lady, Jesus is smiling too. I have no plans. I don't want to go home. I have school in the morning. You know what they say about gypsy girls. My life was either a circus or a zoo. So the poems I'm going to read now are more directly, overtly, explicitly, aggressively political, and they're kind of to do with being poor and having mental illness and living in Tory Britain. Spoiler alert, it's a bit crap. And these are really kind of, yeah, these are really new, so you're lucky or desperately unlucky, depending on which way you look at it, that you get to kind of hear these. The first one is called On Guillotines. Monday is wrongness with knobs on. I cling to the dog like I'm lashed to a mast. My friend asks, what I'm afraid of. What am I afraid of? The woman next door, her mercy, her men in general, ridicule and malnutrition, all of it really, everything. I'm afraid of being arrested, detained without charge, of blowing my phone call, afraid of my friends, the North, the rebels we pretend to, afraid of trying too hard, afraid, just afraid. Monday, the sun goes up and down like a bus on its tired hydraulics. I go up and down, though mainly down, afternoons. I throw my solitude at the wall in strings, it sticks like cooked spaghetti. Turn on the TV, absorb its distortion. On RT there's a child, his chest is slowly filling up with air. He inflates himself like a blood pressure cuff. He's brown and bones as a peat bog mummy. Make another cup of tea. Someone somewhere is having it worse. Don't cry for me, Ballymena. Everyone laughed at the funny joke, but I am still afraid. We're all afraid. Our fear tickles the strip light, spreads like a cough in a cinema. Monday, I hoover the rug in front of the shrine for the first time in months. I could lose the plot and spiral to Christ, his all-consuming love, his totally tedious chivalry. He wants my soul in the same way the farmer wants a dog. His E-I-A-D-O banging a gong in my gourd. I could lose the plot. But mine is a sapling, madness bends but does not break. My faith keeps luck on a keychain, counts out magpies on fingers. Monday. I'm stuck on fear like a ball gown in the branches. The mind stalls at it. A zip stiff halfway to fastened. What am I afraid of? Serenity, the mouths in which the butter melts, a strap to my back, the ears of kneeling peers, lack of a clue, their big ideas. They'll be coming for me now. After that, they'll be coming for you. And the next one is called Gentry. The people round here have a used look, as in, these are the secrets I live with, as in, take your job and shove it. Hand in carrier bag, we are headed for a coat in Golden Spring. The girls wear impractical sandals, and this is what you're entitled to, and this is what you deserve. Didn't you know they are not the same thing? It's too much sometimes. I don't always look, but I know, and then the unyielded eye has cause to curse the skull it swims in. No, I'm not like you. That isn't to boast. On my walk to work, a car's crushed into walls like faces buried in pillows, and what are you holding in? And what are you holding back? Tell me again, how full is life? Our haircuts and cuisine. Here is a cat with a hookah tail. Here are tattoos and childbirth, other people's palsied photons fastened to a screen. How full life is, how infuriatingly miraculous. Here is a pub quiz. Here is a playlist, the best of the 90s done in streaky, dulcet sleeves. From where are you going? From where are you from? The people round here are chips with everything, stiff beef on dry bread, recycled carbohydrates. No, I am not like you, like them, some third thing. The alky dark, I shun the club, its terabytes of ecstasy. The people round here are me, not me. The forklift face, the fouled mouth, death and tracksuits, glandular animals. And the briars on the waste ground lording their thorns. Don't talk to me about up and coming. Don't talk to me. Don't talk. And the last slice of cheeriness is called On Weekends. Just in case you were looking forward to your weekend, this poem will now ruin it for you. On weekends. I might not wash today. I might let the weekend slide into gratifying anarchy. I am supposed to be thankful. This town is not among the true nightmare portions of the world, a roof over my head and quite sufficient shine on the silver. Thanks. I might though. Haven't you seen it? Your city pokes a crafty fang at a flight path. It's my city too, I suppose. You think you are in control, idiot. To name is to own, not to know, and now we are so used to blood we miss the silly crimson pity of it. I dream of hard men, the torturers' tweezers of scholars supplanting their teeth in basement gardens. It's there, but you miss it. I don't miss a thing. It's always there, the aura before a seizure inside my expendable circuitry, deep and dog ears down, always, even always. I dream of the made face coming apart in my hands like wet bread. I might not dress today. I might suck sauce from the bottle. Here's mud in your Gloria Mundi, and a blue blowtorch to your extremities, dear. How do you feel about that? Or the massive enigma of love? Does anything shock you? I am supposed to be grateful. The shirt on my back and quite enough coal in the cellar. Thanks. But the grand mal growls at the back of the mind, and the back of the mind is a bottle bank. Love, we come and go, stooped in their palisades. The rich are always with us, their hexentants and agonies. Here's Kate. We all loved Kate. Oblivious bombshell, and didn't she used to be us, not me? Your city. Its nicotine fingers, windows lit, yellow and sickly. Here we crouch our snouts to the wall. I might not leave the house today. Haven't you seen what's out there, their vaunting faith, the awful punitive string? I dream of Muti in suitcases, grown men stabbed in their hamlets, eyes without faces, world without end. It's there, still there, but you do not see it. I see everything. I see it all. And the Billy-born drunks in the house next door are shouting inadmissible figments, slurred through the wall. Thank you. I will see you later.
Well, thank you so much, Fran. That was wonderful. One of the really strange things about this as a format is that you don't get to hear the applause you would in a usual reading for that, and it was wonderful. I remember the first time that I've seen Fran read, she was really nervous before reading, really sort of anxious about it, and then she sort of delivered an amazing performance, a bit like we've just had. And I really couldn't reconcile the two things, the nervousness and such wonderful reading. But thank you, that was great. And I think there may have been some problems with the visuals, but your voice came through beautifully, so that was great. And now I'm thrilled to be able to introduce Solmaz Sharif. I first came across her in the pages of Poetry Review due to the swap with Poetry Magazine in Chicago, and her poem Vulnerability Study stunned me when I first read it. Her first collection, Look, will be published by Grey Wolf in 2016, and will certainly be one of the events of 2016, I'm sure. I think the political aspect, clearly you can see why we themed it that way with Fran's wonderful reading, and also I think you'll see in Solmaz's reading as well a wonderful essay she writes on political and poetic erasure. Starts with the following three lines: every poem is an action, every action is political, every poem is political. So we can look forward to some political poetry.
Thank you so much, Ed. Hello, everyone. I cannot see. I trust you're out there. I want to start, as I was asked to, with a poem that has been an influence on me, a political one. It's by a poet named June Jordan, who's been a tremendous influence on me. And the poem feels especially relevant today, though it was written in the late 70s. Poem about police violence. Tell me something. What you think would happen if every time they kill a black boy, then we kill a cop? Every time they kill a black man, then we kill a cop. You think the accident rate would lower subsequently? Sometimes the feeling like "amaze me, baby" comes back to my mouth, and I am quiet like Olympian pools from the running, the mountainous snows under the sun. Sometimes thinking about the 12th house of the cosmos, or the way your ear ensnares the tip of my tongue, or signs that I have never seen like danger, women working. I lose consciousness of ugly, bestial, rabid, and repetitive affront as when they tell me 18 cops in order to subdue one man. 18 strangled him to death in the ensuing scuffle. Don't you idolize the diction of the powerful, subdue and scuffle, my oh my? And that the murder, that the killing of Arthur Miller on a Brooklyn street was just a justifiable accident. Again. People have been having accidents all over the globe so long like that, I reckon that the only suitable insurance is a gun. I'm saying war is not to understand or rerun. War is to be fought and won. Sometimes the feeling like amaze me, baby, blots it out, the bestial, but not too often. Tell me something. What you think would happen if every time they kill a black boy, then we kill a cop? Every time they kill a black man, then we kill a cop. You think the accident rate would lower subsequently? There's an aside in that poem about the diction of the powerful that was a turning point in my own work, and the book that is coming out next year on Grey Wolf is a poetic rewrite of the U.S. Department of Defense's dictionary. So I'm going to just read a few poems from that. The poems that I am reading from, the titles are taken from the dictionary, and there are various terms throughout. The first poem I'm going to read from is from a longer elegy that I wrote for an uncle, a draftee who was killed in the Iran-Iraq War, whom I never met, but I try to elegize him anyway. It's called Personal Effects. These just a couple of sections from it. Daily I sit with the language they've made of our language to neutralize the capability of low dollar value items like you. You are what is referred to as a casualty, unclear whether from a catalytic or frontal attack, unclear the final time you were addressed, thou beloved. It was for us a catastrophic event, just destroyed. Died of wounds received in action. Yes, there was early warning. You said you were especially scared of mortar rounds. In execution planning, they weighed the losses, the sustainability, and budgeted for X number. They budgeted for the phone call to your mother and weighed that against the amount saved in rations and your taste for cigarettes and the tea you poured your boys and the tea you would have poured me, approaching, hello, the change you collected in jars, jumping a bit as the family learns to slam the home's various doors. How could she say the things she does not know? A poison-tipped arrow, she told classmates at recess, to the neck, hollow whistle of it launched from the blow tube cutting the air between them. According to most definitions, I have never been at war. According to mine, most of my life spent there. Anthrax and salt and pepper shakers, patrol car windshields with crosshairs painted over them, some badge holding my father's pocket contents up to him and asking where the cash is from. The war in Iraq, I read, is over now. The last wheels gathering into themselves as they lift off the sad tarmac. I say, begin. I say, end. And you are to believe this is what happens. I say, chew 40 times before swallowing slime. And you go home to mother, press a dog tag to your temple, press a gun to that, the tag flowering into your skull. Thank God for all-weather floor mats and the slope of my personal driveway and beer cans that change color to let me know they are cold enough, the full-sized cab smelling of iron and Axe body spray. In 2003, a man held a fistful of blood and brains to a PBS camera and yelled, "Is this the freedom they want for us?" It was from his friend's head. They were marching as they figured Americans do. Between them hardly 3 horsepower, and still we shot him. We say the war is over, but still the woman leans across the passenger seat. My son, my son. I wasn't there, so I can't know, can I? His mother's bed. A grief we don't attempt to console. I killed him, she'll tell me years later. Fuck celestial guidance. I killed him, she'll say. In the midst of civil affairs, he surprises, he arrives, eyes taped shut, torso held together by black thread, fridge cold. Grief is a closed area, cluttered with his fork against the plate and other forgotten musics. The enlarged ID photo above her mantle means I can know Amu, my dear collateral damage, as only a state or a school might do. Vulnerability study. Your face turning from mine to keep from coming. 8 strawberries in a wet blue bowl. Bubba holding his pants up at the checkpoint. A newlywed securing her updo with grenade pins. A wall cleared of nails for the ghosts to walk through. Waltz. Everywhere we went, I went in pigtails no one could see, ribbon curls by the scissors' sharp edge, the zip of the ribbon's tiny ridges, that childhood record, the bumping our cars undertook when hitting those strips along the interstate meant to shake us awake. Everywhere we went, horses bucking their riders off, holstered pistols or 2 Frenchies dancing in black and white in a torn-apart living room on the big screen, our polite cow faces lit softly by new wave cinema I will never get into. What is fascism? A student asked, and can you believe I couldn't remember the definition? The sonnet, I said. I could have said this, our sanctioned Tunis. Sitting next to you, I sat with pigtails no one could see. Driving to the cinema, you were yelling. This is not yelling, you corrected. In the car, a small satellite of closed sound. I will resolve this, I thought, and through that resolution, through that sticking with, I will be a stronger compatriot. This is fascism. Dinner party by dinner party, waltz by waltz, weddings ringed by admirers, by older couples who will now touch each other publicly on the dance floor. Driving to the cinema, you were yelling, and beside us briefly, a sheriff's retrofitted bus. Full or empty was impossible to see. I thought I'd read a couple Doegar poems that deal with displacement. The title is Little Cities, and that's taken from the book of Genesis, a quote by Lot pleading to the Lord. Behold, now this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live. Little cities. Shiraz is not a single thing I know. Turning down its streets, it turns out to be such a faraway thing, without which I have learned to be. My never life is loud, and over its houses falls the finest film of soot daily. Even if the windows are closed, the outside comes in, and through the glass panes, a man selling something, no longer by cart and call, but by bullhorn and jalopy. How to say what he is selling? It is no thing this language thought worth naming, no thing I have used before. It is his life I don't see daily, not theater, not play, though I remain only audience. It is a thing he must sail daily, and every day he peddles this thing, a without which I can't name, without which is my life. Persian letters. Dear Aleph, like Ovid, I'll have no last words. This is what it means to die among barbarians. Bar, bar, bar was how the Greeks heard our speech, sheep, beasts, and so we became barbarians. We make them reveal the brutes they are, Aleph, by the things we make them name. David, they tell me, is the one should aspire to, but ever since I first heard them say Philistine, I've known I am Goliath if I am anything. My last poem is the title poem from the book. It's called Look. According to the Department of Defense, look means, in mind warfare, the period in which a mind is receptive of an influence. Look. It matters what you call a thing. Exquisite, a lover called me, exquisite. Whereas, well, if I were from your culture living in this country, said the man outside the 2004 Republican National Convention, I would put up with that for this country. Whereas I felt the need to clarify, you would put up with torture, you mean? And he proclaimed yes. Whereas what is your life? Whereas years after they look down from their jets and declare my mother's Abadan block probably destroyed, we walked by the villas, the faces of buildings torn off into dioramas, and recorded it on a handheld camcorder. Whereas it could take as long as 16 seconds between the trigger pulled in Las Vegas and the Hellfire missile landing in Mazar Sharif, after which they will ask themselves, did we hit a child? No, a dog, they will answer. Whereas the federal judge at the sentencing hearing said, I want to make sure I pronounce the defendant's name correctly. Whereas this lover would pronounce my name and call me exquisite and lay the floor lamp across the floor, softening even the light. Whereas the lover made my heat rise so that if heat sensors were trained on me, they could read my thermal shadow through the roof and through the wardrobe. Whereas it's not like seeing a dead body walking to the grocery store here. It's not like that. It's a rock, you know, it's a rock. It's kind of like acceptable. It's kind of like seeing a dead dog or a dead cat laying. Whereas I thought if he would look at my exquisite face and reconsider. Whereas you mean I should be sent missing because of my family name? And he answered, yes, that's exactly what I mean, adding that his wife helped draft the Patriot Act. Whereas the federal judge wanted to make sure he pronounced the defendant's name correctly and said he had read all the exhibits, which included the letter I wrote to cast the defendant in a loving light. Whereas today we celebrate things like his transfer to a detention center closer to home, whereas his son has moved across the country, whereas I made nothing happen, whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow, for what is your life? It is even a thermal shadow. It appears so little and then vanishes from the screen. Whereas I cannot control my own heat, and it can take as long as 16 seconds between the trigger, the Hellfire missile, and a dog, they will answer themselves, whereas a dog, they will say. Now, therefore, let it matter what we call a thing. Let it be the exquisite face for at least 16 seconds. Let me look at you. Let me look at you in a light that takes years to get here. Thank you.
Well, that was really remarkable, truly electric. Thank you very much, and thank you both of you. We've had some wonderful questions come in, and do send them, keep sending them, and we'll try and get to them. I'd like to kick off, just because I have the privilege of the mic, with a question of my own, which is, I suppose, that Fran, you said the line, is this what you're entitled to, and this is what you deserve, are not the same thing. And Solmaz had, is this the freedom they want for us? And in both instances, it sort of made me think that there's a wonderful immediate directness about those phrases. And I wondered whether or not you felt that political poetry in general demands a different form of directness from other types of poetry or not. I was particularly thinking, to start off, maybe Solmaz, about how you've considered erasure as a political device, as a poetic device before.
Sure. In response to directness, yes and no. I mean, I think that it's the responsibility of the poet to speak the truth. And the responsibility of the political poet is usually to speak the truth to power. And that usually requires kind of countering the euphemistic language that is used by the state to excuse its own violence or subordination of its citizens. So I guess by implication, that requires a kind of directness that I really appreciate. I think in the case of that quote, the thing that I really want and that's important to my work is a polyvocality, is to let in as many quotes from other people as I possibly can. That line was taken from a Frontline episode, for example, and I think that it's important to rather than become the spokesman, as a political poet often can kind of become, to become one of the many, to become choral in a way. And your second question in terms of erasure, erasure is a kind of postmodern aesthetic device that's being used widely. But I have a hard time even hearing the word without being chilled, because I can't help but hear it in a political context. I can't help but hear erasure and think of state erasure. I can't help but think of settler colonialism. I can't help but think of the United States of America and what it's built on top of, and who built it, and how that's been erased. So to use that as a formal technique, I'm only interested in using it to highlight where it happens politically and socially. It's not, to me, something to be kind of played with lightly. Does that answer your question? Or?
It does. It was a wonderful answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fran, do you feel that you write differently when you start with a political objective, or do you start with a political objective, I suppose?
I mean, I don't think that it's not a political act for me. The writing of poetry is not a political act. It's a poetic act first and foremost. But I mean, you can't live in the world and not be in some way political, because everything is politics. And most of the anger that I feel, it's a direct material consequence. It's because of living with the direct material consequence of political decisions. And I hear from like a lot of people and a lot of my friends even, that politics is just opinion and we're all entitled to an opinion. I don't actually think that that's true, because when you're on the bottom of the heap, or you're a marginalized person, or you're culturally or socially other, then you live with the consequences of those decisions. And I want a poem that kind of speaks to the immediacy of that and speaks to the texture of people's lives. So I mean that they're all political in that sense, but it's the kind of human element that I'm writing about, and the human element that I'm writing from, kind of particularizing those experiences, I guess.
So picking up on that sense of anger, then here's a question from Josephine to both poets. How do you keep your political writing restrained, if that's the right word, and stop it becoming a rant? Is there a technique that you use?
I'm sorry.
Perhaps if we start with Fran?
I'm not necessarily sure that I do. I think it's kind of I think it mostly is rant, at least 90% of the time. But I think the thing is not to fear that rant, not to fear that anger. I'm not writing, I'm not standing on a soapbox in the middle of Hyde Park, obviously. So that there is craft to it, I guess, and discipline in a sense. But I mean, I don't think the anger is anything to be afraid of. I mean, anger gives you energy. Anger gets stuff done. I'm not interested really in reining that in. I'm more interested in finding ways I can communicate that with the urgency that I consider necessary. I don't know if that really answers the question or not.
Exceptionally eloquent ranting, if it were. Solmaz, do you?
Sure. I too. I don't think I try not to worry about it too much. Um, I think that rage and anger has a role in life and in poetry. I think rants aren't necessarily bad. I think that you can rant in a poem and it'll be just fine. But I am a pretty, I tend to create a lot of formal restrictions and rules for myself, um, and write within those. So that usually lowers the temperature of whatever it is I'm trying to say, because I'm constantly coming up against a form that is that won't let me speak in my natural language. And I do that because I think that that's mirrors or mimics how I live my life. And I do think that a poem should be a reflection of how a life is lived. So, for example, I've been writing in syllabics a lot right now, and that's been just breaking everything apart. And it's hard to rant in syllabics. So.
We've got a question here from Tom in London. He says, thank you for a powerful reading. Who are some of the poets or perhaps the places who have helped to inform your writing? And we heard at the start of your reading Solmaz, June Jordan. Do you want to maybe give us a bit more context of June Jordan or another poet or place that's kind of helped make?
Sure. Yeah, June Jordan was an African American poet, activist, essayist. She wrote a libretto. She did everything really. Collaborated with Buckminster Fuller. She was quite a mind, and she was ferocious and a ferocious teacher also. And I've worked with her students in a program that she started at Berkeley called Poetry for the People. And then through that program, I was introduced to many other poets, such as like Mahmoud Darwish, Adrienne Rich, Muriel Rukeyser, who continue to be influences on me. Yeah.
And Fran?
I mean, obviously, all the fiat, all the time. I just think he should have a much bigger reputation than he does, and I think it's his politics and the unapologetic way that he puts it all out there that maybe keeps him from having that reputation. So, I mean, I got into him when I was about 14, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. It's kind of the first poet I read that made me realize that poetry could actually be for people like me, and that it was kind of okay to be angry, and it was okay to look at the life you had and talk about that. It didn't have to be kind of rarefied or refined or beautiful, and it was kind of like a revelation. I guess other poets, Barney Capaldia was a huge influence on me. I think she's just an amazing poet, and the way she uses language is intricate and beautiful and also slightly sly and just really fantastic. And obviously Roddy Lumsden, who like edited my manuscript for me and kind of is terrifyingly talented and sort of like kept prodding me and whipping me into shape. So like and also like the plays of John Webster and poets like Andrew Marvell and people like that. So sort of really seriously old school. And Eileen Devner Conhill, who wrote like the long lament for Arto Leary, which is a poem that's had like a huge impact on my life generally, and I refer to it a lot in The Mystic and the Pig Thief. It has a lot of resonance. It's kind of treatise almost on grief and grieving, and so that's really important to me as well. So just generally a real kind of mishmash, a real sort of just bits from everywhere. I suck stuff up like a Dyson and just spew it back out.
Okay, we've got a question here from Olivia, and it's for Solmaz. It's wonderful to see the poet read their poems and watch as the themes register across their face. I think unfairly, Fran, we weren't able to see some of that register across your face for some of it. Solmaz, could you speak a bit on your theme displacement and how you use it in your poems as a mode of exploration?
That's a great question, and I'm still figuring it out. You know, I went back to Iran last summer, and I was there for a few months, and it was the longest time I'd spent there, and I hadn't been in about 10 years. And I thought it would be a revelation of some sort, but it wasn't. And I somehow my displacement from the country felt permanent in a way that it hadn't before. So I'm kind of exploring that, you know, what happens when your imagined homeland is no longer, you know, and what happens in confronting that. And I think that just a sense of outsideness or a sense of exile really permeates all of my work. And that's kind of, I feel very much an observer of my poems. And I think that probably has something to do with a sense of displacement.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to sorry. One last question here, which is from Ryan in London. I think Shelley's political poem, The Mask of Anarchy, is a subtle yet striking piece of writing. What would you say the role of the mask is in your poems? Or are the poems a form of unmasking themselves? And I think I'm going to ask that to Fran in the first instance, because quite often it seems that you're using dramatic monologues. That's
Yeah, I actually have, like in the collection I'm putting together now, there are poems that use masks sort of quite literally and quite explicitly, because it's an idea that I became sort of interested in. We have like a social skin that we wear, and we have these different filters that we put on for dealing and engaging with different people. And I like the idea that poetry is both more honest and more deceptive and deceiving. There's an idea that, you know, you put on a mask, you become more true to yourself. It's kind of like a really, you know, it's like a really old hackneyed idea that's, but I think it's something that's really worth exploring within the context of poetry, because a poem can operate that way. And in a lot of my books, I use sort of signs and ciphers, and there are sort of made up places and real places, and they kind of blend and overlap. And I'm interested in sort of like telling the truth, but also lying at the same time, and riddles and puzzles. I think, yeah. Does that make any sense at all? I'm sort of, no, it's very difficult when you have no feedback and you can't tell if people are looking at you like you're stark raving bonkers.
You're not stark raving bonkers at all. That's
Yeah. So I guess that kind of tangentially maybe answers the question a little bit, slightly. It's just a huge kind of subject. It's really difficult to nail it down.
Well, I think we're sort of coming to the end of our broadcast now, and I'd just firstly like to thank you both so much for doing this. It was a wonderful reading, and it will be available as an archived recording and podcast on YouTube and through the Transatlantic Poetry Reading website as well. I also want to just bring your attention to the next reading that the Transatlantic Poetry Series is bringing, which is Shruti Iyer and Janine Joseph, and they'll be on the 20th of June, and I'm looking forward to it myself, and I hope some of you will be able to join us then. Finally, just again, thank you both so much, and I hope everyone out there enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Take care. Okay.